have been working on these projects. So this one, historically known as SN1, also I've been trying to get the Pearl Hub name going, but we'll see how long that ends up working for. This is a building right by the base of the Brooklyn Bridge on the Manhattan side called, it's a Sabi data center. And, it's got the big Verizon logo on the side of it, but they rent out antenna space on the rooftop. So we've been on that rooftop for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years or something. And it's all the original equipment up there. It's slowly been added to, but the original stuff is still up there. So the scope of my project has been to kind of replace all of the existing stuff up there with all new stuff. We also have people in the company that are, I guess, happy with our project and want to try and give us a good deal. And as part of that, we have to spread our antennas out around as opposed to be located in one specific cell of the grid. So the project ended up being move all of our antennas to keep our monthly rent down low, replace them all with new antennas, try and make sure everyone is still connected that is currently served, which is a bunch of people in Chinatown, Lower East Side, and then a couple people over in Williamsburg as well. So that's what I've been working on. I guess also new cable runs down to where the rack exists, because the cable runs right now are a little bit sketchy and we wanted to have something a little bit more reliable and a little bit more open for expansion in the future. So literally 24 hours ago, we were over there mounting a new high-speed antenna that connects to this building 26 stories above our heads. And this is a rain resilient link, so this was important to us to move to the new location, get online. We had a couple issues, but it's all ready to go now. I think, right, Matt? Good enough, ready to go. We'll cut over in a couple weeks' time. We're debugging a couple other things right now, but this was last night's progress, which was exciting. We also have been doing digital migrations of all the light beams all around the city. So this bottom map picture is of the 3 remaining links that we need to move over. They're light beams that are all the way out of Williamsburg. I've had a ridiculously hard time actually getting them moved over because they all have 2 to 3 mile links, which is longer than anything else we're dealing with. The old antenna that we're taking down is a stronger antenna than what we're going to be using now. It's actually out of spec. We're not really supposed to be using it the way we're using it right now. So there are a bunch of reasons why this isn't really working. So I desperately need help getting out to Williamsburg and figuring out replacements for these 3 nodes that we can keep them online and in the mesh. So, yep. This left photo is of the antenna, the new antenna that is pointing out. There's that tall building with the horizontal light bar on top. That's the tall building in the center top photo to the left of the arrow for reference. And there's a hope that we could point it at this building. Again, 26 stories over our heads is a bunch of antennas facing out towards Williamsburg. But unfortunately, there's that one domino square construction that went right up in the way of everyone. So it's not really going to help us out too much. So in terms of what's next, we just need to finish that light beam migration. We need to get rid of some of the equipment that's in the server rack right now. There's a server in there that has been running and not rebooted for 3,000 days. So there's this rescue operation that we're going to try where we have these battery backups and move it without powering it off to a new location. We'll see how that ends up going. And then later on down the line, we want to try and organize some of the Chinatown light beams. There are dozens of them in a very small radius, and we want to try and make little mini hubs around them to reduce the overall load on this site. So, yep, a lot of people have helped throughout the process, and thank you everyone for that. That's it for this short presentation. I have one more. Does anyone have any questions about this site or anything? Oh, we got to use the microphone, sorry.
Why are you replacing a stronger antenna with a weaker antenna?
I think it's a maintainability thing. The stronger antenna is 50 pounds and massive, and we would have to pay more rent for that bigger antenna. Theoretically, the smaller ones should work about the same. Yeah.
Okay.
I would add too that there's probably 5 or 6 clients that have had kind of a somewhat significant decrease in performance, and everybody else has been just fine. And we've been hooking up new people, so John put a lot of work into kind of figuring out that these antennas also have a broader elevation to them. So it was kind of a trade-off to decide. Could always swap the horns out, or there's a couple of different options.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we have some options. It's also worth noting that we're going from, I think, 7 or 8 antennas down to 4. So we're trying to squeeze more people into fewer antennas. Yeah. Cool. Got one question in the back. Oh, sorry. My rules.
Yeah, so you're saying like more people in fewer antennas. So how about bandwidth?
Bandwidth is fine. It's more of a problem of how many antennas can be talking to the hub at the same time. This is why I'm hoping that we can kind of So as my example, East Broadway in Chinatown has, I think, 8 light beams within a 1 block distance. They don't all need to be getting uplinks at the same time. They could be pointed at each other, but that was from a time in the mesh where there were these light beam only installs that could not mesh with one another. So the hope is that we are adding members and antennas, but we'll be taking away some of the old ones and building out mini hubs in the process. As an example, our Henry hub has been really, really useful. It's a tall building, very iconic in that area, and it's very easy to point nearby nodes at that.
All right, fair enough.
I think the other thing, at a site that has, you can see there's 150 antennas on top of that building. The challenge with us isn't so much bandwidth to a single access point, it's the crowding of the frequencies. So unfortunately, adding more antennas doesn't really help us because we only have so much literal like frequency, like wavelength that we can use. So we've tried that at a couple of other sites with varying results. Like Saratoga's got like 15 APs and it doesn't really perform any better than a site that has half as many. So
This is Olmsted. This is a building on the Upper West Side that I actually just came from before this meeting. It's right up the 96th Street BC stop. It's directly next to the Central Park. It is one of 4 buildings in this big cluster. So we've got 400 units in this building, and based on how this building goes, the theory is that we could expand to the 1,200 other units in the surrounding buildings that all have identical floor plans. Each floor has 20-ish units, and the overall scope of this project was to get fiber access to each one of those units, but not just 1 gigabit fiber, also 10 gigabit fiber. And then in addition, we want to have a fiber link back to a data center so that this will kind of be a high bandwidth uplink to the rest of the mesh that we don't have to rely on wireless signals for. The intention for that is that this will also be able to feed Harlem and Bronx mesh, which up to this point has all been run off of VPN. So we're building out kind of our resilience in the Bronx and in Harlem. So progress, we had the dark fiber link actually physically constructed for a couple months now, but as of late, we did all of our peering and magic stuff that I don't really understand, that Zach, who's not here, knows a lot more about. Needless to say, we got very good results. The left result was with my laptop that only can run at gigabit, but the one on the right was running on a virtual machine inside the data center, and we were able to get 10 gigabit routing, which is faster than anywhere else we can get in the mesh, which is very, very exciting. I think there was some new router protocol thing that was being trialed as part of this as well. So this is particularly exciting because it's a multi-year software project that's been working, as well as getting a nice high bandwidth uplink for the site that I've been working on. We've been going along with member installs. I think we're up to 5 or 6 as of today. The way that this works is that there are fibers in the stairwells, and we run a fiber from the stairwell out through the hallway to above the member's door. And then we drill a hole through their wall, add a new fiber inside their apartment, plug it into power, and then we're all set. They should be able to get gigabit speeds at a minimum. And if they use the more expensive adapter, they can get 10 gigabit speeds, but they'll need a separate Wi-Fi router for that. So that's been exciting. We just had news that we got an email blast to the building residents this morning. So 200 some different people were notified that it's now available and ready. And I was there today doing the tests, making sure that every floor had fiber. So, and that the signal was good. So yeah, we're all set to do installs. Over the next, I guess, weeks or months as I go and do installs, I'm really hoping that other people will be able to shadow along so that they can do installs as well. Because right now I think it's just Sean and myself that are able to do them. So yeah, that'll be a big help. I guess also exciting is that we were talking to the building management, and it's possible that the porters, the staff of full-time porters in the building may also be interested in picking up that work, which would be really amazing. I've also just been trying to do documentation, cable tidying, tying up the loose ends that I had left over the past couple months. So everything is pretty buttoned up now. Everything's labeled, everything's tested. We've got a diagram that represents the state of the site in its current form, which we can reference later. And yeah, I think everything is all pretty much good other than just doing installs. I guess there's one more thing, which is the building has, I think, 5 separate Spectrum connections right now for their various rooms and management offices and whatever else. They want to eventually move over entirely to the mesh. So that means that getting their credit card payment machines in the laundry room and getting their management office Wi-Fi and all that stuff moved over to the mesh is going to be a little bit of a project. Our last discussion was that their security cameras have public IP addresses that they need to port forward on. So we need to work some magic with that in order to get that all working. But yeah, once that's all done, then I think the whole building will be able to run off the mesh. And because this has been a much longer project, I've got a few dozen people that have helped me over the many, many months. So again, thank you to everyone. It's been amazing. Cool. Questions about this? We got a question from Brian. Wait for the mic.
An important thing to say about this is it's one building of 4. So
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you mention that?
Yeah. So I tried to say that at the beginning, but right. This is 400 units in a single building. There are 3 identical buildings and they own the space in between them. So they could technically run fibers in between the other buildings. The buildings are all under separate management. So we'll have a new ordeal each time we want to go and establish a contract or something with them. But yeah, the expectation there is that this one project is the guinea pig for all the other buildings, and we could replicate this for the other buildings as well. And yeah, that would be 1,600 units on a single campus, which is a lot more than anything else we've done so far. I think right now we have 850 units at this site, and that's kind of the most that we're doing. We got one question in the back.
Pass it back on.
Yes, I was wondering, are you guys still using VLANs also in this building?
Yeah, there are some VLANs being used, not a whole lot.
I mean, more in a sense, like you have how many people? 200 houses or 200 apartments?
400, yeah.
400. So each apartment has its own VLAN, right?
Each apartment has its own router in the same way that a normal network would have a router. So you can't see the devices behind the router. You can only see the router itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also isolation, so one apartment can't ping the other apartment.
Yeah, exactly. But there's 400 cables running then, right? To the switch. I mean, 400 then.
Oh.
That's what I'm asking.
Got it. The whole way that this works is this passive optical network where PON, GPON, XGS PON, that it's one fiber, or I guess 4 fibers for all 400 units going into the actual server, the head end unit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some Ubiquiti special sauce in the background that has them all do time sharing. So one person will talk at a time and the other person will talk, and that's how they all get gigabit service at the same time. Yeah.
But you have a cable running to all the apartments, right? So 400 cable needs to be pulled.
There's a cable running. Yeah, eventually, right. A cable will run to every apartment. We've got cables in the stairwells right now because the last mile is up to the installer to do on the day of install. That'll add an extra 30 minutes or so to the install time.
All of the cables on the floor join at the stairwell, and they go with sickle.
all of the cables on the floor join into a single point and they go into a single riser that's like passively optically coupled. So you don't have
Right.
So, yeah.
So I got another way of putting it is from one very strong signal, there's a splitter that splits it out into 8 signals, and then those 8 signals split out into 8 more signals, and eventually you get to enough ports to serve 400 units. Yeah,
You still have the gigabit even if it's split. So
that's right. Yeah, yeah. There's this. I hid the title of the column, but there's this experience column here where it says 100%, 88%, and as long as you're at 100%, no matter the signal strength, you'll be able to get gigabit speeds.
okay, but
Yeah.
there is no throttling or something.
No, there's
But
no
like if
throttling,
one
right?
person says like I'm gonna use up this 10 gig link for whatever, then
Right. We're not doing that at the moment. We could do, if it becomes in our experience here, running this for what? Grand has been up for 3 years, I think. 4 years. Yeah. Something along those lines. We haven't had any need for that quality of service where we make sure that everyone gets at least 5 megabits per second or whatever. So right now someone can fully saturate a gigabit link here, and we haven't really had that happen to the point where there are issues with other people. Right. We also have a 40 gigabit link to the data center, which is
cool.
right. You need 40 apartments all at the same time running a gigabit speed to be able to saturate that.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
And eventually, is it also the goal to give everyone a public IP address with IPv6 instead of 4?
As far as I'm aware, we're not really working towards IPv6 or public IPs.
Okay.
But that's not something I'm personally interested in, so that's not something that I've been pursuing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I think that's good. I'll turn it over to Matt. Thank you all for your time.
So we've had a really, really busy year. We had 1,852 join requests. That has resulted in over 450 installations. A couple of pictures here of just random people getting things hooked up. We had 12 new hubs planned and built out and 16 hubs upgraded. I will actually take a moment to, it's going to do that on me, isn't it? What I'd like to just quickly, since there's so many new people here, I would like to just quickly share, if you haven't seen our map, as I share my email with YouTube. Let's get rid of that. And what flight did I cancel? You can see here on our map, all of our red dots are individual buildings that are hooked up. We call those nodes. All of these teal dots are hubs. And then all of these dark blue dots are what we consider to be supernodes. So we are here at supernode 10? I can't remember. This is Grand Street. Supernode 1 is what John was just discussing. And then further down here into Industry City, if I can drag, is our supernode 3. But as you can see, we have a lot. We have 70 hubs across our network. If I were to just filter out slowly, the map actually works super well. I love it. I'm not just saying that because he's here. You can see some of the design that we have here. We have spent a lot of time to build this and make it more robust. And a lot of these hubs are new this year. So back to what I was talking about. Yeah. Can someone hand him the mic? It's sitting right there.
Just scroll up to Queens, please.
Absolutely. Queens is lacking, unfortunately. So the chief challenge in Queens is line of sight for us currently, right? As you can see, the longest links we have are 6 or 7 kilometers, and that is not a super reliable link if it thinks about raining. So one of the challenges that we have of expanding further outside of our footprint is that we kind of need to do it in a sort of, think about a sort of like World War II fashion where we have to keep moving the front forward. And there are a number of industrial areas down here that don't really have a lot of demand. We would love to establish some hubs in Queens, whether it's over the air to one of our hubs or even a fiber lease if we can get a whole building that's interested. All we need is one good building that has enough demand for fiber, and then we can expand the mesh pretty rapidly out there. We do have a couple of other projects like the New York Presbyterian organization that we're working with that may give us a good line of sight into Astoria and some other areas, but I know everybody asks about Queens all the time. So, yeah. With that being said, if you are interested in volunteering, we can definitely get you a VPN account. Now, that doesn't help you save any money on your internet, but it does get you on the mesh so that you can access our services. And if you are so interested, we have in the past and currently have VPN nodes that do serve other members around them. Sometimes that runs afoul of the terms of service, but what they don't know won't kill them. 12 hubs. Come on. There we go. 12 hubs planned and built out, 16 hubs upgraded. So that's a good chunk of all of our hubs if you think about it. $78,000, more than that in equipment purchased, and that's only as of last month. I couldn't even figure out how to get this number. Certainly tens of thousands of support hours across many, many, many volunteers. I don't even there's 12 ways to get a hold of our support, and it's something that we're working on to make it a little bit better. We have a new data center at the Google building in Chelsea. We have a new peering connection and 3 new supernodes. Brian stepped away. We only have 1 new supernode, but we have 2 other buildings that we're calling supernodes. There's a discussion on what a supernode is, but that's okay. We have 4 new community partnerships, and I will cover all of this in more detail in a little bit. We have 6 full buildings either installed or enabled, like Olmsted that John was talking about. I'm sorry, this is moving around. I'm going to try to adjust it for you. We have had 11 organizational meetings, including this one, and 35 plus hack nights. Please come join. You can see all of the fun that we have. And we have a new mascot. Julian didn't come. I was hoping we'd get to see his puppy. Okay. Let's start in Brooklyn. We're going to just take a little trip around the world here. So, Supernode 3, as I mentioned, is one of our supernodes. It has a data center that hosts a significant amount of our core infrastructure. It also has uplinks to many, many buildings around it. It serves sort of the lower half. If you were to look at the map of all of the nodes in Brooklyn, it serves pretty much the lower half. They all connect to Supernode 3, which has a 40 gigabit uplink to the broader internet. This year, mostly we spent time reducing our antenna presence there because they keep raising their prices. Because, again, we are a nonprofit organization, and one of our chief goals is to keep our operational costs low. Throughout the year, we've established new connectivity to South Slope, which I will talk about, to a full building install in Sunset Park. We removed a couple of point-to-point connections, again, to bring down that monthly cost. We did a little bit of AP rationalization, although that is certainly a work in progress. And we've also expanded volunteer awareness and access to the site because it does host so much of our core infrastructure. And when we can't get into it, it's a really bad day for everybody.
Yeah, since you guys are a non-profit organization, did you try to convince them like, hey man, we're a non-profit, can you just make a discount?
We definitely get very, very aggressive rates, right? Don't get me wrong. But, you know, they also have to run a business. So most of the internet that we get from the public is actually sponsored by the Internet Society. There's your plug. But we do have to pay things like fiber leases and otherwise. So, you know, to be good stewards of the public's money and the donations that we get. We of course try to keep those those expenses low.
Yeah, so those guys don't want to do it for free,
Yeah, it's
basically, because
nothing in life comes free. At least not in the United States.
okay, well,
Yes, Pilot Fiber is I don't know if we call them a partner, but certainly they give us an incredible deal, especially in some of our uplinks. So we love working with them. So if we move south into Sunset Park, and we actually have a couple of hubs down here, Leiden, as well as John, Sean, myself, and a few others stood up a new hub. There are, I think, 14 members currently installed in this building. Ton of work there. We're running Ethernet cables through the dumbwaiters, which is really interesting. I don't have a picture. I struggled to find the right pictures here, but we have a bunch of switches in the basement. The installations are actually pretty straightforward. The co-op really likes us. We're expanding into other co-ops around the neighborhood, so much of this is sort of building trust with these co-ops that, one, we're legitimate, right? And we have good support. The board president there, Victor Ortega, who's listed here, has been a good advocate of us, helps us get access and get the word out to his people. In Sunset Park, this is the hub that's called Sunset Park, which is down the street. That's another co-op. We've had installs there a little bit longer. Leiden did some more work there to install a 60 gigahertz connection so that they would have gigabit connectivity, as well as allow us to expand further to the east, which we will make our way there shortly. The most recent hub that we stood up just a couple of weeks ago, as we come down to the southeast to Borough Park, John and I kind of put this together with a lot of people that helped. Rob, 2 different Jameses, 2 different Davids, Scott, Ash, Richard, and as well as a number of other people. We managed to figure out how to do a hub in a day. Now, that doesn't mean it only took a day to actually do everything. It was an incredible amount of planning, mostly by John, to put all the materials together to do the planning. We were able to get all of these, you can't see my mouse, all of those masts up with all of the antennas. There are, I think, 8 or 9 antennas on that roof that are all oriented to a couple of different hubs, as well as serving the neighborhood. This roof rack that's indoors right below, that has a router, a UPS, and a power supply. And then in the basement, it's kind of a small image, but there's actually a pretty nice, clean hookup there. We're using Mocha to access all of the apartments. Mocha is coax, and it carries Ethernet over coax. It's much, much easier if you can get access to it instead of running the lines, because the last thing we wanted to do was have to pay to get drilling into the walls and whatnot. So this was a fun hub. I love doing this. I think we were done in like 6 hours, and then it was just cleanup. So we're getting better. Further to the east in Flatbush, the Flatbush Cats Hub was a node for a while. In the winter, Daniel stood it up. This is a nonprofit veterinary hospital. On their roof, Daniel, Scott, Carl, Leiden, and others in the winter really put a bunch of equipment on the top so that it could serve that neighborhood. And then recently in the fall, just I want to say a month and a half ago, they did some improvements to the power. We added the connectivity to Borough Park, and we've been working with Link NYC on a project where we're connected to one of their 5G towers and working on getting a fiber uplink through them. So that's another one of our partnerships. This was a cool building. It's kind of hard to tell in that image, but it's got these panels on the roof that they were able to lift up. And Scott there came up with this clever, I don't know what it was. It was like a pry bar that he opened them up with to get all the cables to make them look nice and clean. So this one was a lot of fun. South Slope, as we move back into central Brooklyn. So in the south of Park Slope, this hub came forward. I was just reading through the thread today. In December, this is a 10-story building, I think, which has really good line of sight to a lot of hubs. So we kind of went all in on this one. We put a 10 gigabit wireless uplink with a SICLU pair to Supernode 3. We have a 3.5 gigabit uplink to Vernon, which is honestly our biggest hub that we have. At least it serves certainly the most members. Ton of work to set this one up, 3 or 4 days on site in the middle of the summer heat. You can see a number of folks down here There was a ton of work involved here. I think that this one was a lot of fun. As of this point, I think there's probably 10 or 15 installs in the building, but they've been pushing it among the residents. This one is a little bit different. There's fiber run to each floor to a net powers that then we do Ethernet to each apartment. So interesting. As we come further north, President and Park Slope, these are two other hubs in Park Slope. I did some work on these as well as with help from Marg and John and Olivier and a number of others. In the spring and the summer, we added a faster uplink to President to Prospect Heights, which also provided a backup link for Prospect Heights, which is one of our larger hubs. In Park Slope, we moved their high-speed link to South Slope. We also did an event at Brooklyn Pride for outreach, and there's something on that a little bit later. In the fall, what was that, about 2 months ago, we did a big upgrade, another hub in a day, although that one was already stood up, where we added a number of additional equipment up there. We added sectors so that the people in the neighborhood could connect at a faster speed, as well as a bunch of additional redundancy. And Olivier, who lives in Europe, was visiting for a week or two, and he joined us and he graced us with his presence. So for those of us who haven't been around a long time, most of us hadn't met him before.
This guy right here.
Now in Bed-Stuy, on the west of Bed-Stuy is our Vernon hub. This hub, if you look at the map again, is the one that touches everything. This serves as the sort of central connection point from Brooklyn to Manhattan. It has a 10 gigabit CICLU uplink to this building where we are here. And it carries on any given day about 1.5 to 2 gigabits at a time. We mostly did upgrades here and sort of infrastructure improvements to increase reliability. We aligned some antennas. I added some additional, to the question that you had before, we did add some additional access points because the nodes around here, it is quite crowded. We had a hub shut down to the west that we went around. And we went to a bunch of buildings and got them fixed. And then in the summer and fall, we did some upgrades to the masts so that they'd be more secure, especially in bad weather. We added some uplinks to other hubs. We added 2 Wade APs, which is a gigabit capable wireless access point that sits now. We have one on every side of the building from west to east so that we can hook up new hubs and new large buildings kind of at will now all throughout that neighborhood because we are seeing more demand for it. We've also done some pretty major improvements to the design overall of sort of network routing around here in all the surrounding area to provide a lot more reliability. There he is. Hey, Scott. And then finally, Daniel is piloting a LTE project. Interestingly, I don't know anything about it and he's not here, but I think so far decent results. And this is essentially cellular service. And he's up there in the corner. Some more pictures of this site. You can see here, this is a cool building. If you get a chance to volunteer and we're doing something at Vernon, I do suggest you come out. It has probably the best views of any building that we have in Brooklyn. You can see kind of up there, you can see all of Manhattan. It's 26 stories. It's a public housing project in the middle of Bed-Stuy. But there's a lot of we just have a ton of good, cool hardware. It's a good place to learn. Okay, moving north into Greenpoint. Rescuing Victory from the jaws of defeat. We had a lot of problems with Greenpoint for a while. There were some trees that grew in the way of a number of links that we had there. They had some very unreliable service for many months. Dan Miller in the back here managed to identify, because he just likes walking into buildings and talking to people, a good roof that could see both this building here all the way to Greenpoint, about 4 kilometers away, as well as Vernon, the building that we discussed before, and a number of other hubs around it. So I think in the span of about 6 days, we put together a bomb, and him and John and a number of others went out there and threw up a hub. And it has been operating really, really well since. We have a little bit more work to do there, but since then, they have super, super reliable service, and I'm really, really happy about that. Okay, as we move into Northeast Brooklyn, Wilson and Friends. So there are a number of hubs in Northeast Brooklyn. Again, it's a little hard to see because the screen's not very large. There are kind of 4 hubs in that area, Jefferson and Thames, as well as Cypress. And then this area down here to the east of Vernon where Wilson wasn't very well served, and the clients down there had kind of very poor reception because of wireless interference and everything else. So we dropped the hub there at Wilson, and we're able to get a number of other people, and then really just a lot of ongoing improvements at those hubs around. Lots of rooftop visits, lots of emailing members just to get into the damn buildings because the landlords like to alarm the roofs, which we learn the hard way frequently. But again, if you were to look at the map, in fact, I'll switch back to it, right? If you look at the map, just as an example, right, this area, someone said they were in Bushwick. You can see the density that we've got here, right? So there's tons and tons of installs. This is Wilson here, right? So we've been trying, again, because there's so many installs, and especially down here as well, all of these 5 gigahertz connections, it just maxes out those access points. So what we've been trying to do is add more little sort of micro hubs that other people can connect to. You can see down here, this little hub that I put up. There's another one over here. So we're trying to find more and more buildings like that because it makes a better experience for everybody else that's connected. Okay, Soft Surplus is to the north of Vernon. It has a VPN connection and serves as a rain backup for Saratoga. For a while, Vernon would just go down if it rained super hard. So we added a LTU pair. This is a 5 gigahertz kind of high capacity antenna all the way to Vernon. Daniel did a number of upgrades to the infrastructure there. You can't really tell because of the size of the screen, but we can now get about 300 or 400 megabit through that VPN. It is a backup. If we were to run 300 or 400 megabit through that consistently, Verizon would certainly shut it down. But it serves as honestly, a critical backup for us. When it rains very hard, no longer do the nodes connected to Vernon just lose internet until it stops raining super hard. They now pipe up through Soft Surplus. It is not a great experience for them, but some internet is much better than none. Dan has also added some connections to some other hubs around it, again, all with the intention of providing more redundancy throughout the network here. Eldert is north of our Saratoga hub, and I will go back and kind of point all of these out. We had a somewhat hostile management company here. Somebody moved out. They cut the cords. They threw the equipment off the roof, I think. I can't remember everything that happened, but yeah, they beat it with a hammer. There were pieces of equipment. We should probably turn the stream off, but Dan and Daniel found some clever ways to put our equipment in a little bit less conspicuous locations because that hub does serve, if you see on the map, it serves 15 or 20 nodes up towards Ridgewood. And for about a week, most of them did not have internet, but, these guys cowboyed up and they got up on top of there and they made it happen. So the ninja fixes, yes. And then a whole bunch of other stuff. To the west of Vernon, I mentioned fixing the Nostrand hub closure. I've done half building install a couple blocks west of there. We've been working on the Spencer hub. We've been working on another hub in there. The DeGraw hub, which is in, in Carroll Gardens. We added another point-to-point there. St. Mark's down in Crown Heights. We've added 60 gigahertz high capacity connections, a bunch of upgrades. Prospect Lefferts Gardens all the way back in spring to fall. There's a fun little there's like a group of 25 buildings that are all hooked up. So we've added a bunch of capacity there. To the south of Vernon, I mentioned about the South 3 APs, and then Prospect Heights Hub. Also, we had to do some replacements there because of roof work that was going to happen. That's always fun. And Brian has managed to actually get a real building agreement in place and been doing some fiber planning to get that building hooked up, because Prospect Heights, which we will pause and show here, is another one of our major hubs that serves many members. This is Prospect Heights. It is at the top of Prospect Park. It is a critical piece of infrastructure for us. So we want to ensure that it is well served. It is also just a great building, and it's very tall, and has a lot of people inside it, and we would love to get them hooked up. That, I think, covers Brooklyn. And if anybody has any questions, please just interrupt me. Let's go to the south of Manhattan. So John already talked about Supernode 1. Again, he probably undersold it. This was a ton of planning because I think that there's 60 or 70 people connected to it, right? Individual buildings. So, we can't just go up there and start ripping things down. John did a ton of planning on angles, on the right type of equipment, getting access to the building, figuring out where it's going to go. We also had a number of core services that were at Supernode 1 because it used to have an internet uplink for us. It no longer does. So Olivier and others have been moving those services off of this building. Really, it's just kind of become a hub at this point because it doesn't have an internet uplink, but it does still serve a ton of members. Just a couple more pictures here. I only mentioned, I don't know why I didn't put more people, John, Matt, Zach, James, Rick. A ton of people have been up here as well, also because it's got great views and who doesn't like going up there. But it's been a lot of work, and I'm really glad that John took this on because it takes a lot of planning to do this without kind of taking everybody offline for a long time. Right here at Grand Street, a ton of small projects as well as a couple of big ones. There were some fiber repairs. There was a cut fiber, 9 or 10 months ago, which we had a backup for, wireless over the air, but we did finally get that fixed. Daniel and Marg, as well as some of our Vista fellows and others, have done a lot for outreach, and Sean as well, and building relationships in the building. I don't know what the count is that we're up to, but we have hundreds of members hooked up here. We do free tech support hours. You can see in the building like all the flyers and stuff, but we try to do a lot of work here to help these people because it's a lot of people on the mesh that certainly a couple of years ago are a little bit more tech literate. Here, it's a little more, there's a more diverse group. So there's a lot of people here that don't, that need help with cord cutting and things like that. So we try to do outreach and training for them. There's a new building at 165 Broome up the street that they've just finished wiring up. Yeah, that way. I don't know, one of these directions. They also, if you walk outside, we have public Wi-Fi access points that Daniel has spent some time doing with James's help and a couple of others. Additionally, there's not, actually, I think if we turn that TV on, it's probably there. There's some displays that kind of advertise some of these things that we're doing. I put a picture of a bunch of bad ONUs, but it's actually, we have them everywhere. So tons and tons of work here at Grand Street. Again, Grand Street serves as like all of Manhattan and half of Brooklyn come to this building and then ride fiber to our data center in Chelsea. So this is an absolutely critical site. So we need to give it a lot of love and attention. John already mentioned Olmsted as we move north. But again, I cannot overstate how much effort and planning this has been. I think he's been working on it for about a year. Almost everybody in the mesh has helped with this building. It has really, I would just call out that it's been 100% volunteer driven and delivered. Other than a couple of things that really we can't do, like, running the dark fiber that Pilot took care of, but just about everything was done with pure volunteer labor here. And it's just an incredible project. And I think it's going to be really amazing for us. A couple of more pictures there. John didn't go into details because he's done previous presentations on it, but there's a really cool setup on the roof that he's got in this, like the water tower. It's not dangerous at all. Don't worry about it. So lots of work there. As we move further north, we do have a hub at CCNY. So we don't serve the campus, obviously. They have their own, certainly high-speed fiber, but they allow us to be on their roof, and we use that as an uplink further north to the Sugar Hill hub, which is further north in Harlem. We did some upgrades there for infrastructure, mostly to improve the reliability, add some new lines, fix some antennas, but ultimately to run and get connectivity all the way up to Lily House. This was another big, massive project. Andrew led this one, did it in a relatively short timeline because we had some pretty strict contractual requirements to get these folks online. I think it was 3 or 4 on-site days in the dead heat of the summer. And they lugged all this stuff all the way up to Harlem. And I believe it was our first Bronx hub, at least first like fully online Bronx hub. This one's pretty far up there at 200. I don't know what street it's on. I still haven't been there, but I missed this one. I was gone every weekend they were doing it. So a lot of sunburn, you know, a lot of skin knees. I don't have enough pictures to give credit to this, although I will. That's Andrew with our AF24, 24 gigahertz antenna. But it was also, this was a good one because I really like that we try to bring as many new volunteers in to learn, right? So if you show up, even if you don't know anything, you can see half the people in here probably had never drilled into I still haven't used one of these drills. I'm kind of terrified to. But if you show up, we'll teach you how. You'll learn about networking. You'll learn about how all this stuff works. Andrew has also led, with help, but certainly led, we have a partnership that we've developed with Youth Action, Youth Build. It is a nonprofit organization that enables East Harlem students to be internet technicians and engineers. I am not doing it any credit here, by the way. I do encourage you to check out their website. They're a great organization. Andrew has helped lead to build out a hub in East Harlem that the Youth Action, Youth Build students maintain, and they are using that to expand the Mesh's footprint in Harlem. That is a VPN node. So they have a Verizon, I don't know who the carrier is, right? It is also a Link NYC node. We are hoping to get them actually connected to us as we develop more hubs around there. But this is great because we're bringing internet to low-income housing and hooking up all of these areas. And we're training these students to, with good job skills. So ton of work there. On the pictures on the left, we also did some training for their students. So we brought them in. We taught them kind of how we do installs. We walked through setting up the equipment and kind of what happens when we get to rooftops. So, a lot of good work done there. And that was all just in February. No, I'm kidding. Belmont Cove is an ongoing project. It's a massive, massive complex in the Bronx. It will serve as a super node because it has great line of sight. And I don't even know how many buildings are in there. Or I'm sorry, how many units, but that will be coming online soonish. Yeah. Right. So end of the year. That one has been slow and steady, but it's again further expanding into the Bronx. And then, as I mentioned, New York Presbyterian. This is not a traditional hub, so to speak, and it is a work in progress. But we're trying to partner with New York Presbyterian and I can't remember the other hospital network. They've got a couple of really amazing rooftops in the Bronx that can see kind of like halfway into Queens and whatnot. And they're very excited about our project, and we're working with them to help sort of enable digital health initiatives. And we've applied for some grants and some programs with them as well to do outreach. But it's just a couple of great buildings. We're almost there, I promise. Overall infrastructure improvements. I can't do any justice to the work here because, like you, I am not really that technical. I make PowerPoint slides and like to play with routers. James has spent a significant amount of time improving our DNS infrastructure. It's a long-standing and outgoing project. Like I mentioned, a lot of those core services from SN1 that Olivier mostly has been doing. James has also been working on security infrastructure. Willard has added Datadog monitoring, and then the big one is MeshDB. For those who have been to any other meetings, you've probably heard of it. For those that haven't, just last Saturday, we went live. Big deal. So the Mesh for 10 years has run on Google Sheets, and it's run super well, and they were well designed, but we have grown to the point to where I think we're at 18,000 join forms thus far. You saw at the very beginning of the presentation, we had 1,500 coming in. The system has been very robust and useful for us. It is a little bit hard to extend to new services. So the team that put this together, Andrew, Willard, Andy, who just left, I think, James, as well as with some input from Olivier and many, many others. They really wanted to rationalize all of those processes and systems. And we finally went live, and we're super excited. If you go to the join form today, it looks a lot prettier, and there's new updates coming to it. If you're an installer or someone that helps maintain our network, We now have a really good, pretty web portal, and it's a fully functioning, proper database with redundancy and everything else. And it's fully hosted on the mesh, which we love. A total guess, 2.5 million hours, I think, went into this. Since it's my presentation, I will talk about my pet project. I've been working on rain fade and overall design. OSPF is the routing methodology that we use inside of the mesh. It's open shortest path first. My goals after I started poking around at different hubs was that no one would experience an extended outage in the heavy rain. At every site that we have 60 gigahertz antennas, which are quite susceptible to rain fade, that we would add a dedicated 5 gigahertz backup with BFD detection, which essentially makes it flip in about a half a second instead of much longer for the omnis to realize that that link went down, and that at every hub there would be a dedicated secondary link, preferably to a different site. To date, I have created 74, point-to-point OSPF routes. I, not 100% me, installed 5 gigahertz antennas at 25 plus hubs. The images are a little bit small, but you can see here, right? This is one example in Revere. It looks much prettier on my screen, right? Where they go through St. Mark's, but they have a backup through Prospect Heights. This has been a slow and long process, but I hope it's really helped allow a lot of people to have a better experience on the mesh. My whole goal here, again, is that when it rains very hard, it is the nature of this that we are over the air wireless, and it's never going to be perfect. But no one is just out for the day, because I will be very honest with you. If my internet went out every time it rained very hard, I work at home frequently, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't, no matter how much I believe in it. So I think it's really, really critical that we maintain these goals. We're almost there. I've done pretty much all of Brooklyn. I have a couple of, Manhattan's not so bad because the buildings are much closer to each other, so we don't really experience rain fade nearly as bad. But we're almost there. I would say I feel good. I'm 85, 90%. So a lot of work. The other thing is those light beams cost like $60. So, it doesn't really hurt us. We have about 180 of them over there. Okay. Many, many other projects as well. And the reason that I mentioned all of this was because when I went through about a month ago and started writing these down, I was overwhelmed. It feels like on any given day when we come together, there's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 volunteers maybe. Holy shit. Like, how do we even do all of this? This is 11 months of work. The Mil Mundos program was in Ridgewood and in Bed-Stuy of hooking up low-income Hispanics, Hispanic families through Mil Mundos. I think we've got 25 installs to date. The Vista program, we have a couple of dedicated Vista fellows that work for us. We won a New York State Connect All grant to do digital outreach and to really help us win more grants, honestly, as weird as that sounds. Ton of work has been done on marketing and outreach materials, all the pretty stuff that you can see up there, including this sweater. I wore it today. Makers Fair, the Brooklyn Pride. We've done a couple of other tabling events. The partnership with NYC. I can't even really keep up with everything. It's hard to imagine because it sometimes it feels so disorganized and chaotic, and that we don't get anything done. But it's really just kind of incredible. On a slightly sadder topic, a dedicated volunteers of ours, Carl Wenninger, passed away this year. He's been with the Mesh for many years. We miss him dearly. I thought it was really wonderful that probably 8 or 9 people came to his it wasn't a funeral, it was a memorial. Yeah. And they played music and it was really wonderful. I met Carl in Prospect Lefferts Garden in his neighborhood. And he's just a really good human. And we miss him a lot. I know that this is not my mesh, certainly, but I would like to personally thank everyone for your contributions. It is impossible for me to list every member. I asked John earlier if he could give me his list, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like this, I would offend someone. Hundreds of thousands of hours of effort. It has to be sweat and blood, so much planning and thought, the tireless dedication that everybody here has to what we do. I don't think that this would exist without every single one of us. And I really, really appreciate everything that you all do. And I know that everybody else feels the same way. So thank you. Thank you.
As we know, I live by Flatbush Cats, and I walk past it to pick up Indian food, and I look for that 5G tower that you hook into, and I cannot see it.
Okay.
Where is it?
Well, actually, I walked by the building, but I don't know where it is. You were there. Did you see it, Scott, when you were over there?
Yeah. But to describe where it is I'd have to be
Yeah. There's actually, I think, not on this map, but we have a map somewhere that shows Link NYC connections. Is it on the map now? Oh yeah, that little button that says Link NYC that I'm staring at right in front of me. So somewhere, I think it's right there.
Yeah, it's yep.
So it's down by the junction.
That would be my guess. It looks like it's at Glenwood and Flatbush. That little black dot.
Yep.
So we have a 60 gigahertz point-to-point between these two. We're working on finalizing that project with the intent of routing their fiber back to our data center. Because as we push further, just as a little nugget for those of you who are new to this, obviously as we push further south, the more wireless hops that you got to get to, the more points of failure, right? So ideally, we don't have to go too far before you get to somewhere that has fiber, which is much more reliable, except occasionally when we have outages there as well, but that's out of our control. Thanks, everybody.